Hey, what if I told you the biggest threat to your business isn't your competition? I know that might take you back a little bit, but what if it was the contract you never signed, the entity maybe that you chose too quickly, or the intellectual property you didn't protect? You know, most founders don't lose business because they lack ideas. They lose because they didn't protect what they built. Today on the Champion Forum podcast, we're uncovering the blind spots that could cost you everything.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
The Cozza Law Group PLLC, a premier boutique law firm with offices in Pittsburgh, New York City, and Nashville, serves small to large companies, startup entrepreneurs, and seasoned business owners. Recognized by Pennsylvania super lawyers as rising stars, listed among the best lawyers in America, and honored by lawyers of distinction, we redefine legal services. Agile, efficient, and creative, we offer white glove service 24/7, ensuring peace of mind. Choose the Cozza Law Group for trusted legal advice.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Man, I am so excited for today's show. Quite frankly, it's probably long overdue. And the mission of this episode, it's to uncover legal blind spots that can absolutely sink a brand, slow down your business that you are working so hard to build. And to help me with this conversation is an absolute expert in this field. Rocco Cozza, he's the founder and managing partner of Cozza Law Group. Been practicing law since 2003 with expertise in business, entertainment, sports, real estate, intellectual property. He holds a JD from Duquesne University, an MBA from Waynesburg University, and a BA in psychology from Washington and Jefferson College, and is admitted to practice in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New York, and Tennessee. But beyond law, this guy is not a one-trick pony. He's an amazing speaker, a phenomenal entrepreneur that I've learned so much from. He's a published author, a strategic business advisor, and he's very known for his TEDx talk, Radical Kindness, Why the Unbillable Hour Matters Most in Business. This guy is passionate about giving back as well. What he's done for the community is unbelievable. Rocco founded the CLG Foundation to empower underprivileged youth and serves on several nonprofit boards. He's a proud Pittsburgh native. We would like to call him a Yinzer, if you will. If you know, you know. But he's really more than that. He's such a great father to his son, Gabe, his daughters, Ellie and Melina. Hey, something I didn't know about him. He's a Taekwondo black belt as well. But, man, just a guy that gives back to our community. Beyond being a lawyer, he's a guide for my company, Jeff Hancher Enterprises. He serves as a trusted advisor on our board, and somebody that I would call a great friend. So, Rocco, welcome to the show, my friend. Glad to have you on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. Truly appreciate it. And those were very kind words, man.
It is absolutely amazing to have you. So excited for it. Like I said, it's probably been a long time coming, but we are here now. There's probably enough content just about how you have helped me in my business journey that would probably be very laughable as well. All the things I don't know that you've probably saved me from many, many courtrooms, so I'm grateful.
It's my pleasure, Ben. That's what I'm here for.
Hey, before we jump into the content, I'd like to hear a little bit about the journey. I know some of the journey, but I would like our listener to hear, like, were you 5 years old out playing in the yard and you were like, someday I'm going to build a company, I'm going to be a lawyer? Like, how did you get from the childhood, dreams to kind of where you are today, and how did you settle on law?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I grew up in Newcastle, very, low middle class town, hometown, single mom. No one in my family went to college. I didn't know any lawyers. All I knew as a kid, I loved solving problems. I was in the gifted program when I was young, so I was constantly being challenged with these logic problems and game problems. And I just loved the ability to take a situation, pull it apart and piece it back together differently. So I knew the law was a way to do that, but I had an entrepreneur bug as a kid. I was selling baseball cards, always trying to find ways to make money. So I went to college and fell in love with psychology. funny. And I went to W&J intending to be a lawyer because I had a great pre-law program. But when I majored in psychology, I fell in love with just the human aspect of psychology, like learning about people and truly understanding what makes a person tick and why they think the way they do. So I let fate decide. I got to my senior year of college, said, I'm going to take the GREs. If I get into this one program I was applying to for child psychology, psychology is the path. If not, I'm going to take a year off and go to law school. Well, I applied, got waitlisted. So that was a sign, and I took a year off, worked as a personal trainer, applied to law school, took the LSATs, and the rest was history, man.
So you are a gap year guy.
Yeah, yeah. And it was the best decision for me because law school is very hard, right? The first year is all that matters. But I took that year off, and I worked as a personal trainer at a gym where I had to open it at 6 a.m. So I got used to waking up early. So it really put me into the right frame of mind going from college, taking that year off, and then the law school. If I would have went from college to law school, I would have probably done terrible. Just because the discipline that was required that first year, I learned it by working the gap year.
And I mean, some of my years, I'm thinking to the bio I just did, maybe a little bit off there, because I'm thinking back to this journey and a little bit that I know. You know, you were in corporate law, and then you make the big, scary leap into starting your own firm. Maybe tell us about that first job out of college, and then you get to the place where you're like, you know what, I got to chase this dream and build on my own. What did that look like?
Yeah. My first job out of law school, I worked in a big law firm. So one of the largest employment law firms in the country. So great position. But the problem was they were a new office in Pittsburgh. I worked for two partners exclusively, and they left the firm. So I kind of was left hanging. So I ended up getting a job in a corporation. I was their corporate counsel. Got promoted to general counsel within a year. I intended to stay at this company for maybe 3 to 5 years. I was there for 14 years. It's a long time, but it was cool because I got to see the world. I traveled the world on their dime, India, Eastern Europe, Israel. I got to see a lot of cool places, but it didn't fuel my passion. Like I couldn't make a difference in the company. I was the lawyer. Everyone looked at me as the lawyer. We had 8 different management changes during my tenure. I couldn't make any difference. So it was 2017 was kind of the pivotal year. I turned 40 in August. My grandmother, who was a huge inspiration in my life, she passed away in December. And I felt like that was my sign to make the leap. And I walked in February of 18 and just quit. Just walked in, went to the CEO or CFO, just resigned, gave him 4 weeks notice. And I was like, okay, got to figure this out now.
Sounds so familiar. Yeah. I mean, you hear these stories because like everybody, especially in the Pittsburgh market, and there's people listening all over the world, but if you know Rocco, he makes it look easy. He has an amazing brand. But I know through some of our lunches and coffees, it's like making that leap. It's hard. It's challenging. And you got the white papers to prove it, right?
Yeah, it was probably the scariest moments of my life because, I had young kids. My son was getting ready to go to college, and I was the primary breadwinner. So I went from, making multiple 6 figures to starting at 0. Every month I had to start at 0. I'm like, okay, like what? And I was excited about it, but there were moments I'd wake up in a panic in the middle of the night, like, what did I do? But every time I was about to quit, something happened that kind of kept me on the path. Like I could tell crazy stories about things that just happened along the way. So I felt like this was the path I was supposed to take, but it was very scary along the way, looking back. I mean, there were moments where I was very close to quitting.
It resonates with me, and I know that some of the advice, well, look, we don't have enough time to saturate all that you have, right? But I get asked questions all the time about your expertise, my clients, whatever it might be. I send a ton of people your way because you have this. I mean, I think you just said it without saying it was, this is more than building a business. This is a calling. And I believe that how you know the difference between the two is how you serve people. And just to give the listener some credence to this, I called Rocco once. I had an opportunity to talk to some underprivileged kids, probably not a normal audience for Rocco. He offered to do it for free. we get done with this, and I'm almost like apologetic to Rocco, like, I don't know if that was a good use of your time. And he was like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And this is why I wanted you on, because I know when you speak from the heart. You're not just trying to give great legal advice, all that you do. And I can say this because Cozza Law Group has been instrumental in helping me create healthy structure in my company, helping me safeguard against liability. I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, I didn't even have QuickBooks until 9 months into the journey. I was doing Venmo and whatnot. Like I was a hot mess. Like I'm good at two things, and there's a big drop off, right? So I got some questions crafted, Rocco, based on the questions that I often get. That you're an expert to answer. But I would say these questions are also based off of things that I learned in my own entrepreneurial journey when you would just give me this light bulb moment and I would be like, oh my gosh, like I never thought about that. But I would say there's a lot of people listening to this show that they're either founders or they're thinking about it. Like they have this itch. And I think this is the people that you absolutely serve well. And one of the things that you helped me with was this foundational protection. What are some of the most common legal mistakes you see entrepreneurs make when they're just starting the journey?
Oh man,
Right,
how long do we have? So here's a couple fundamental. I'll really give probably two fundamental. One, forming their company, right? I always say that is the foundation of your business. And I use the analogy, if you're building a house, do you pour the foundation yourself or do you paint the walls yourself? When you're setting up your entity and having the right structure, the right documents in place for your company, have an expert do that. Like, don't try and do it through one of these online sites, because if you don't know the way to answer one of the questions or the type of structure you need for now and 5 years from now, it's going to cost you so much more money to unwind things, and you're probably going to spend a lot more money in taxes and have a lot more liability on you. So that's the first and foremost. You have to make sure that the foundation is built correctly. Number two is, don't just take a contract off the internet or from your prior company, because what you don't understand is the way the law works. And one of my law professors said this in class. It's a famous thing. The comma matters. Like, where the comma is placed in a sentence can change the entire intent of that sentence. And if you don't know what to look for, because most people, they're not trained like we are. We're trained to spot those things, to know exactly how a provision reads depending on where the punctuation is. Like, that's just bad business, because that contract is the framework on which you're selling your services. And if you don't have it right, you're dead in the water. And the last one would be, truly work with the right type of lawyer. Like, don't, again, you wouldn't go to a general practice doctor to have heart surgery. So why would you go to a general practice lawyer to set up a business you want to sell one day for $20 million? It just doesn't make sense. But people don't think, they think lawyers, we can do everything and just we're all the same. But we're the same as doctors. And when I use that doctor analogy, that's when most people understand. So those are the three biggest mistakes I've seen.
I'm going to go get my living will. And by the way, can you start a business for me? Like, it doesn't work that way.
Right. You're exactly right. No, a firm can do that, right? If you have multiple practice areas, but one person may not have the expertise in all those areas.
This is big, for sure. Which, when I met you and went into this, fun fact, I didn't really have legal representation at all. And I was just kind of winging it, because I was more afraid of picking the wrong legal representative than anything else, because I've heard all these stories about, like, lawyers, right? Which is something that you fight hard against, these myths. But something else you mentioned about the wrong contracts, you've probably heard this or seen it, but it's freaking hilarious. And it's so true, is don't eat grandma, comma, save lives. Don't eat, comma, grandma. You take the comma out, grandma's dead, right? And
exactly
it's
right.
so true, because when I started, I was literally doing some of my contracts by way of Google. This was pre-ChatGPT even. And my gosh, like, Rocco and his team are very graceful in some of the things we presented to them, but it was a hot mess and something bad waiting to happen. Talk to us a little bit more about, and you touched on this, but talk to us a little bit more about forming the entity. We know all the buzzwords, the LLC, the S Corp, the C Corp. What do you, without going into a full-blown presentation, the person that's listening that's like, did I do this wrong? Or they're like, you know what, I'm thinking about starting a side hustle. Rocco, what do I do? How do I know what to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I would tell you, most small to mid-sized businesses, the best entity, and I've been practicing law, over 2 decades now, is an LLC because it gives you flexibility. So what that means is a limited liability company. It allows you, one, very little administrative burden to actually operate the company, but it gives you the ability to be taxed differently. When you hear people talk about, I need an S Corp, all that means is they want to be taxed a certain way. Yes, there's no such thing as an actual S Corp. There's a corporation or an LLC. A corporation is taxed as a S corporation. That it's a tax election. So 99% of clients that come to us that are new businesses or side hustles or starting something fresh, LLC makes the most sense because one, it's very easy to set up, they're relatively inexpensive to do. You have the advantages of being taxed as a sole proprietor when you start, so it gives you some flexibility. But as you start making more money, you can make that election to be taxed as an S corporation, which basically saves you about 50% of the money you make, you don't pay self-employment tax on. That's the easiest way for you to put it. So it's a large tax savings. So truly, that's what it boils down to. If you're thinking about a side hustle or starting a business, very rarely in my career have I seen it make sense to start anything but an LLC.
So if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, man, I think I might have done it wrong, what's the steps to autocorrect that? Is that possible, or is it like a lot of red tape?
No, anything's possible. So when it comes to converting an entity, we'll say, so if they form maybe like a limited partnership or just a regular C corporation, there's some paperwork you have to do. You file with the state, you do an entity conversion, but it's not the end of the world. But what I tell people is do it sooner rather than later. Don't wait till you get too far down the road and you're too invested in the business. And now there's all these things happening. You may have taken some losses in your corporation you're carrying forward that now you can't unwind. So if you do feel like that is something that maybe it's not set up correctly. You can always reverse course, but do it sooner rather than later. Don't wait too long.
And I know something that you've done for us is, let's audit what you're currently doing. Not to say that it's wrong, but let's prove it, right? And so I would give that advice to any listener. You may be listening and you're like me. You don't have, this isn't your lane. Look, there's audits that can be done to figure out. Even if it's sometimes it's not a matter of what you're doing is wrong. It's just that it's not a best case scenario. And so that's what I love about you all is like you guide well. You're not just looking for another billable hour, but there's a lot of discovery that happens with your team to get us in the right lane.
Yeah, we like to do what we call health checks of businesses, and that's really just understanding your state of the union, we'll say, like how the company's structured. Because if you make the right changes up front, they're relatively inexpensive to do. Now you're set up for the long term. It isn't something you have to do on a consistent basis, but do it right from the beginning, and you're going to save yourself time, money, and a lot of heartburn and headaches down the road. So that is something, and I can tell you this, I probably tell people not to pay me to do things more than I tell them to pay me to do things, because they come and want to do everything. Like, you don't need to do any of that stuff. Like, you're jumping way too far ahead. That's the other issue I see with entrepreneurs. They're chasing the squirrel and they want to do everything. So that is something that we take pride in. Like, truly, it's about the relationship, not about the transaction.
And unless you have that expertise, I would recommend to anybody, this is a significant best investment of your resources. I always say there's 3 things you can't get wrong if you're launching a company. You can't get the legal wrong, you can't get the accounting wrong, and you can't get the insurance wrong. Like, you got to get, you can make a lot of mistakes, but please, not in those 3 areas, right? Like, that can end you in minutes.
100%.
I want to come back to this, going online and pulling the contract, because I have to believe I'm not alone. When I started out and made a lot of mistakes, there's small business owners out there right now that they're relying on the handshake. to cut a deal. The template that they find, we're in a world of ChatGPT. Go a little bit deeper on this. What are the risks of operating this way, especially when it comes to partnerships or anything else that's on the table?
So let's start with the no agreement,
Yeah.
right? The handshake. That is yes, verbal agreements can be enforceable, right? But you have to have all the elements of a contract. The problem is if nothing's in writing, it's he said, she said. So to me, when you're thinking of a significant transaction, getting into partnership with someone, selling a service, selling a product, having something in writing is an absolute must. And I'm very candid with business owners. If you're not willing to do that, you're not ready to be in business. Because that's just a fundamental baby step. You have to be able to. That's like crawling before you walk. You have to be able to do that. The other problem when you get these agreements from Google, or now ChatGPT's become the huge culprit, and I can spot those a mile away when people send them to me. The problem with trying to go to AI and create a contract for your business, if you don't know the prompt or what to even tell ChatGPT to create, you just say, hey, I need a partnership agreement. It's going to give you a basic, truly 30% of what it needs basic agreement. Because every little situation can change the dynamic of a contract. And that's what people need to understand. One, when you're putting a contract together, the lawyer you're working with has to intimately understand your business. What is the service or product you sell? Is it intellectual property or not? Is it a commodity type product or service? What are you trying to do? Like grow this company, sell the company? What are the potential risks? Like you have to account for all of this in a contract. What about payment terms? Then the other thing I tell people is assume that the two people that negotiate the contract get both hit by a bus. And now there's a dispute. Can someone pick up that contract on both sides and know exactly who's responsible for what? And if you can't do that, you need to rewrite your contract.
This is such good advice because, in my world as well, I typically get called in when all things are breaking apart. And, specifically in partnerships. I don't know your experience with this, Rocco, but I see it go bad more than I see it go well is partnerships. And
Absolutely, I agree.
I will start asking questions, and it's like, especially first-time business owners, they're just going on friendship, past relationship, a level of trust until it's good until it's not. And so can you maybe talk to that person? And I think why this happens is when you start a business for the first time, you're a little insecure. And so if you have somebody to go through the mayhem with you, it feels a little bit better. Talk to that person that's considering a partner. Should they do that? Should they not? What's your experience with it?
So one, what you just said is absolutely accurate. It's the insecurity that I've found most that people go into partnership, because most of the times they don't need one. But if you are going to go into a partnership, because I see the best partnerships work when they both bring different levels of expertise to the business, right? One person's really good at sales, one person's really good at operations. They just see the world differently and they work. But if you're going into partnership, we always say plan for the 4 Ds. You're in the honeymoon phase and you start the business. That's when you plan for, hey, if we disagree, what do we do? If one of us dies, what do we do? If one of us gets disabled, what do we do? And what happens if one of us gets divorced? Like, these are the D's you have to plan for, because that can impact the company. And if you plan for it up front, they say, hey, if we don't get along anymore, here's how we're going to break the company apart. Or if one of us becomes disabled or passes, here's what's going to happen. That'll save, because we've been in situations where we've litigated those disputes that weren't put together that way, tens of thousands of dollars to fix. If you do it up front, you're looking at maybe a couple $1,000 max to put that really solid agreement in place. And it's best to do it when both people are getting along. I'm not saying partnerships are a bad idea, because they can be very powerful. I've been in partnerships with friends of mine in other businesses. They went well, we sold the companies and moved on. I've also seen them go really, really bad. And it's usually because, one, the partnership's not needed because of the insecurity, or two, they just assume they'll always get along. And that's very rarely the case. Money changes the dynamic very frequently.
Money, or I'm working harder than them and they're getting paid the same as me. You know, you got all of that going on. Great advice on
Yeah.
partnerships. Are there any others, to paint a little bit of a broad brush, Rocco, that you would say, hey, these are agreements that every founder should be thinking about, no matter how small the business is?
Yeah, I mean, one, you should always have a non-disclosure agreement, right? If you're talking about your business and something proprietary that you've created and you want to share it with someone, have a non-disclosure agreement. Two, you should always, if you're a service business, every service you provide should have some sort of written agreement to cover the service, right? So there's that. If you have employees, like there's agreements you need to have, right? You should have an employment agreement or some sort of document that lists, hey, here's what you're getting paid, here's when you're getting paid, here's your time off, here's your benefits, here's what happens if you leave, you can't take our employees, you can't take our stuff. If you have more than one employee, you should have an employee handbook or policy. And there's these things that you, as your business goes through stages, there's going to be different things you need. But at the very bare minimum, non-disclosure agreement, an agreement to sell your product or services, and then as you have an employee, your employee agreements.
Which is something you really helped me with when you were doing the discovery and the audit and the health check. I thought I was doing well by bringing on 1099s. And I remember, like it's yesterday, you said, do you have contractor agreements in place? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, look, you either have to get the agreements or you better beef up your insurance, or both. And I was like, okay, well, and I remember we lost 2 contractors over it. But it was like, you know what? The risk is way greater on the other side. And the 2 that I lost, hindsight, were probably the biggest liabilities I had.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, like that has become, for people listening, that has become such a hot button issue. I've dealt with 3 or 4 audits in the past year for clients. It got audited by Department of Labor because they weren't deeming them contractors. You can call up somebody a contractor and say, I have an agreement. But if they truly aren't a contractor, one of the biggest things they look at is, are they in business for themselves? Can they lose money working for you? Like if they can't lose money, if you're just paying them for the hours they show up, they're not a contractor. They've got to have something at risk. Like there's got to be something at risk. And so a lot of companies out there, they say, I have 1099 employees. That's a misnomer. They're either 1099 contractors or W-2 employees. So if you have contracts, you need to relook at them and make sure they truly do. There's a 6-part test that the Department of Labor looks at, and the biggest piece is, can they lose money working for you? If they can't, you probably need to rethink things.
You just made a lot of blood pressures go through the roof. I guarantee it. Because, we try to play the game, quote unquote, of like, we don't have work comp issues, and we're just going to make them a 1099. If they can't take a loss, you may want to rethink it.
Yeah.
That has people, pulling the car over right now,
Well, and hopefully it'll save them from a painful audit down the road.
Look, I'm not even going to even hint to this, but I'll just say I know of people that have hundreds of 1099 contractors.
Trust me, I do as well. I do as well. So and again, like we help those people navigate that. And look, I will tell you this, and this is me taking the lawyer hat off. Some people just are willing to assume the risk.
Yeah.
They do the cost benefit analysis, and there's only so much I can do. I can't force somebody. I can say, here's the risk. If you get audited, this is expensive.
You decide.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. 100%.
When you were talking about non-disclosure, it started bubbling up some more of my journey. You helped me a lot with trademarks. Matter of fact, I have a quote that I want to trademark. I'll have to hit you offline that keeps coming up. So
cool.
Can we do that? Is that
Awesome.
a thing? I can trademark a quote?
Yeah, as long as it's associated with a good or service.
Yeah. Well, Anyway, see, you heard it here first. You can trademark a quote. But you've helped me with that. You helped me with copyrights, whether it was some of, our branding items, certainly the book launch. What are some intellectual property blind spots that, founders have?
Two of them are what you just mentioned, trademarks and copyrights. So one, the blind spot is they don't know the difference, right? They think they either have them confused, and I always say, A trademark is a name, logo, or slogan associated with a good or service. So think the Nike swoosh, the McDonald's M, things like that. That's a trademark. Copyright is the protection of an original work, meaning a photograph, a movie, a song, a book. If it's an original work, you own the copyright in it. Registering it with the federal government just now allows you to sue in federal court, and it puts the world on notice. So the biggest thing I see founders do is either they want to trademark everything when they're not ready to, or they don't trademark anything when they should. So it's really, you got to do a brand assessment. So when people start out, they come in, they want to set up a company, and I want to trademark all these things. I said, well, have you sold anything yet? No. Do you really like your logo? I don't know, maybe. I'm like, well, don't trademark your logo because it's only going to protect that specific look. If you change one thing, it's a whole new application. You're just going to throw away $1,000. So there's just a misunderstanding of trademarks, copyrights, and when you should and shouldn't do them. And I see a lot of founders waste a lot of money up front or get dinged on the back end because they didn't protect it.
That would have been me, for sure. I mean, I'll say it. Hopefully the statute of limitations is over, but I created T-shirts that said "Pressure is a privilege." Because I'm like, man, that is just such an amazing thought, right? And so I think I even had it on my website. And I'm like, look, if I'm going to use this, I better get this trademarked. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Rocco, and I'm like, I want to own this. I'm going to take this as my brand, my battle cry. Mm-hmm. And Rocco comes back, and he's like, no, sir, somebody already owns that. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, what do I do now? And he was like, stop selling those shirts. And so we shut down merch. But look, if you go on my website now, we tweaked it, and it's now turning the pressure into potential. And Rocco made sure that was good. Nobody else was using it. And so if you take that, Rocco's going to sue you on my behalf. So we own it, right? But jokes aside, it's big because we think we heard something and we liked it, but literally somebody else owns it.
Yeah, and here's what I will say, and this is the other big misconception that founders have, is when they trademark something, it's no one can use it ever on anything. So if you trademark a phrase for clothing, I can put it on a food product. I can put it on electronics. It's a different class of goods. So you have to understand, if you're going to try and protect a brand and you want to do it in all these different things, these are all different classes you have to file under. And I always use the example, there's Dove chocolate and Dove soap. They look almost exactly the same, but they're two different trademarks.
Wow. So there might be more work to do. I'm thinking of my own. This may be an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's different classes, you should definitely protect them in those classes.
Do you find that people buy up trademarks in order to maybe sell them later, kind of like websites?
Well, you can't, because with a trademark, there's two. You can either file what's called a 1A or a 1B application. 1A is I'm using this in commerce, meaning I'm using this mark in commerce and selling it on a good or service. A 1B is I intend to use this within the next 6 months. So you have to either show you're selling it in the next 6 months, or you can file an extension, I think up to 12 or 18 months. So you can't just trademark something and own it. You have to actually be selling it in commerce.
Because I know a lot of people got rich buying up domains.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I know people that have made money doing that, which I would have never thought to do, but there are some creative people out there.
It. Well, it's something I'm thinking about now, because thankfully our business is doing better than it was when I started, is hey, are there things maybe in play now that weren't in play before? Here's what I do know is having good legal counsel can give you a lot of visionary advice of this is where you're going kind of thing. Rocco, as a business grows, and the founder that might be listening that has a goal of scaling and taking and increasing market share, what legal considerations become critical that maybe they weren't even a concern or a thought when they started? Anything that stands out to you?
A couple things. So one, making sure, like I said, when we talk about contracts, right, making sure the contract you have can withstand the growth. Because sometimes people put these agreements together for the way their business is, not for the way it's going to grow into. So you got to relook at all of your fundamental contracts, like your service agreements, your product agreements. Two, as your business grows, sometimes people bring in investments or investors. Do you have your foundational documents aligned correctly? I always say, as a company starts growing over these different thresholds, it's really sitting down and saying, hey, is the the status of the company solid now and for where we're going? So sometimes just making a couple tweaks to the foundational documents, the contracts, and also just looking at the landscape. Like out with the law, right? It's outside of necessarily all the legal pieces, but really understanding the landscape you're trying to grow into. Do you have all the systems to support it? Meaning, do you have the right structures in place, the right people in place, the right compensation structures, right? Because as your business grows, your people may want more money. They may want a bigger piece of the pie. So looking at your employment agreements, do you need to restructure those to allow for different compensation models? There's a lot in every business. It's very fact specific, but you should always be looking at, once you cross 100 grand, once you cross 500 grand, once you cross $1 million, those are different thresholds that come with different problems.
Which, back to the audits, right? They absolutely matter.
Yeah.
Because there's, I mean, look, I have to believe that most entrepreneurs have some common ground, which is we've never been here before. It's like you grow and something crazy happens and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see it coming, which is why I like to ask the questions, because it's like many entrepreneurs, they're passionate about something that they want to give to the world. And just because you won the blue ribbon at the county fair making apple pie doesn't mean you should start an apple pie company just yet. Like there's some tried and true things that you got to get in place. So tremendous advice. I feel like there's an endless amount of topics we could talk about, but as it relates to business law, are there any other pressing things that you're like, Jeff, I wish you would have asked this because it comes up all the time, that maybe the listener should be aware of?
Yeah, so non-compete agreements, right? That's a fundamental topic, and there are different. The FTC tried to ban them last year, then the Supreme Court reversed the ban. Pennsylvania banned them for healthcare providers. So what I always tell companies, look, eventually they're going to go away. It's very hard to stop somebody from working like it was 10 or 20 years ago. So I tell founders, don't focus on the non-compete, focus on the non-solicitation. Protect your clients and your people. Who cares if they go work for a competitor? As long as you're protecting your IP through the confidentiality provisions, have a very solid non-solicitation agreement that says, I won't steal your people or your clients. Don't focus so hard on people get so hung up on non-competes. They want to have a non-compete. I tell people, okay, if you're going to put it in place, that means you better enforce it, because you can't cherry pick when you enforce those agreements. You can't do it to John, your mid-level manager, and say, I'm not going to enforce it against him, but then, Susie, your VP of sales, you want to enforce it against her. You got to do it against both, or the court's going to say you can't cherry pick these restrictions. So I would get rid of it.
I've been in the courtroom many times trying to get a non-compete enforced, and I hate to report that I haven't been very successful. But, you talking about this non-solicitation, I feel like that's way more reasonable. And I feel like
Absolutely.
a judge, if you will, that's reasonable is going to favor the employer in that case. Why I feel like non-competes don't hold up well is you have a judge looking at a guy trying to put food on his table and a company with deep pockets. I mean, the employee is going to get the benefit of the doubt every single time. But a non-solicitation isn't, hey, I don't want you to work there. A non-solicitation is, don't take my company, don't hurt my company. That's all I'm asking you to do. It seems more reasonable.
Yeah, 100%. I always say, it's just don't take my stuff. Right? It's really what it boils down to. Now, I have seen judges enforce non-competes when an employee has done something egregious. They stole client information, they stole a client list, went to a direct competitor, purposely, like intentionally did that, then a judge will be more inclined to do it there. But to your point, you're right. Like, don't worry about that. Just have that reasonable restriction. And most people are willing to sign those. I very rarely had somebody to say to any of my clients, we're not going to sign a non-solicitation. Non-competes, people have walked away from jobs.
Yeah, it's almost like, if you're not willing to sign this, I'm not sure I want you on the team. Like, who are you, right?
That's exactly right.
This is so
Exactly.
good, so good. I hope you all go and get the show notes on this one. And listen, we could have covered hours more of information, but do you have time for a quick lightning round, Rocco? So
Yeah,
talk
of
to
course.
us about your favorite book that's impacted your leadership or the entrepreneurial journey that you've been on.
The by far the Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I've read that book when I was 27. I've read it every year
Yes.
since.
He,
That is the best book.
amazing guy. Wow, that's a good one. If you weren't a lawyer or an entrepreneur, what career would you be in?
I'd be a chef.
Did not
definitely.
see that coming, Rocco. Say more. Tell me more.
Cooking, like one, I'm Italian, so I grew up cooking with my grandmother. It's the only time I've ever felt where my brain is completely focused on one thing when I'm
Wow.
cooking. It's peaceful to me. It is truly a peaceful process.
Okay, so
for
put
me.
the humility to the side because you're a humble guy. Can you
Yeah.
throw it down in the kitchen?
Yeah. I mean, I've won a chili cooking contest, so
Oh.
yes, I can cook.
Wow.
I can cook. Now there are certain I can't cook everything, but there are certain things that I can cook pretty well.
Man, I'm learning more and more.
It's my
I'm
creative
learning more
outlet.
and more, and I love all of it. What's a business tool or an app that you say I could not live without this?
Ooh, that's a good one. Monday is what we use in the firm. It's the project management app, and that kind of the entire firm is on this app. So I have a dashboard into everything that's going on in the firm.
Same. We do it. We use it as well. Hey, look, if you work at Monday, you want a sponsorship, call Rocco and I. We're here for you. But
Yeah,
joking
absolutely.
aside, that thing has streamlined a lot of process for us as well. Last speed round question here for you, Rocco. If you happen to own a billboard and the entire world could see this billboard, what would you have it say?
Be kind to each other. Like really, it's just like we're in a place now where just people just need to be kind to one another, and life gets easy
Yeah.
when you do that.
Yeah, you talk about that in your TED Talk.
Yeah, I mean that's truly how I was raised, and it's something that's always been a core
Yeah.
philosophy of mine.
By the way, go find that TED Talk that Rocco did. It is it's not like new news, like, oh wow, I didn't think of that. But how you present it in that talk, it's convicting. Truly, it brings conviction. So,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
listener, go check that out. Rocco, grateful for you, my friend. I had so many questions
Likewise.
that we didn't get to regarding specifically the entrepreneurial side of scaling a healthy company. You offer a lot of value to founders. Maybe there's a chance we can get you back for a part 2. You open to that?
Absolutely,
All right,
man. I'd
well,
love to.
we'll do a part 2 because there's a lot of meat left on that bone as it relates to scaling and how founders can grow in a healthy way. But if somebody wanted to learn more about Cozza Law or contact you, what's the
Yeah.
best way for them to do that?
One, just go to our website, cozzalaw.com, COZZALAW.com. I'm active on all the social media platforms. You can find me on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Just search for just the Rocco Cozza. Just search my name there, and you can find me there. But you can reach me through the firm, and any of the attorneys here, would do the same amount of service I would give. So, whoever you reach out to our firm to help would be top notch in my
Couldn't
opinion.
agree more. And this is coming from a guy that has experienced it. So, Rocco, thanks so much. Listener, we're going to put all this information in the show notes for you. Make sure that if you're not registered for the show notes, you go to the homepage so that you don't miss out on this free content. Listen, here's what we know. The legal foundation that you build will either protect or it's going to jeopardize the business that you have worked so hard to create. As Rocco reminded us throughout this conversation, it's not always the competition that's going to take you out. It might be the blind spots that you didn't see coming. So don't wait until it's too late to protect your vision. Look, if today's conversation with Rocco opened your eyes, made you think a little bit differently, make sure that you share it with somebody. Maybe another entrepreneur, somebody that's thinking about starting a business who needs to hear it. That's our heart, is to serve. And make sure you join us for part 2. Rocco is coming back. We're going to shift gears from business law to how to be an effective founder and entrepreneur. We're going to dive into mindset, probably, some systems, leadership blind spots. So come back and join us for part 2. Until then, protect your liability and keep turning the pressure into potential.
Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.